Now it's live.
This is Senate Transportation. It's Friday, the 25th, and we are back with Ross McDonald, and we're continuing our conversation about medical transports. You're on, Ross.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm just here to talk about the braided model that is used in Vermont and has been used for decades.
Yep.
And if it's okay, I don't have prepared slides. I understand that maybe Caleb later on may have some images for you, but for us, it's important for us to stick with the transit program and the impact of the braided services that it has on our agency and our understanding of how things work. To that extent, I'll just remind the committee that last year we did present a report on the braided model system and approach. And we looked throughout the state or the country on other approaches, funding models, and established that the current braided system is not only one that works well in a state like Vermont with its low population and its current demand response services in the transit program, but it's also one that has been recognized nationally as a model for other regions and states to consider. And it's not difficult to understand why. When we look at combining our older adults and persons with disability program, our recovery and job access program, with the non-emergency medical transportation program, we are essentially braiding these programs into a clearinghouse in each of our transit regions. And that really does allow for some perceived efficiencies that were borne out in the study last year, not least of which is using the same call center and getting the information from one resource rather than several call centers, using the same computers and management overheads, the combining of policies and approaches to our disparate demand response programs. Also, we use the same vehicles and drivers, and that capacity is fungible to meet the demands of the day across all programs. And it certainly establishes the decision tree that works well in this state, which is Medicaid first. It's an entitlement program. And then we look at the O&D program, Recovery and Job Access, and move from there when we talk about which program is the priority. And we also look at which mode is the lowest cost provision each of those programs. We start with the bus route. There's no better way for us to coordinate programs or trips through our public transit program because they're the ones who are overseeing the bus routes and times and schedules. And then we also have those call centers talking about different eligibility throughout different programs. So they're able to establish that you may not qualify for this program, but you do qualify for that program. Again, that one call, one stop resource is not to be, understated. So that's the value of the braided system. And there's some other items as well in terms of how we procure on behalf of all of our demand response programs. And that would include our scheduling and dispatch software, which was over $4 million. It takes several years to procure, implement, and to establish the best use of those systems and products. That is something that VTrans has borne the full cost of, understanding that it doesn't only help our O&D program, but it helps all demand response programs as well as the NEMT program, especially as we talk with our partners at DEVA and our shared desire to see more coordination across regions and across programs. Getting more people in those empty seats is only going to lower those costs for everyone. Also, those vehicle procurements, when we look at what those vehicle needs are in a region, we consider the demand from the NEMT program and incorporate that into our vehicle capital program. And again, we just have those vehicles with just a little bit more flexibility and capacity than if we had bifurcated programs, and we'd have the old thing or scenario is you don't want to have a transit vehicle following a NEMT vehicle going to the same place from the same origin. And there are instances where that occurs, but that's generally in more dense areas where the overall capacity needed and modes are like in Newark, New Jersey, for example. So that's where we are with the braided system and a very brief overview. And I'm happy to answer any questions or expand upon anything, any element you'd like.
Thanks, Ross. Any questions for Ross? Thank you oh, you've got one.
Thank you, Ross, so much. It's nice to see you on Zoom. I'm in charge of reporting out the sections related to public transit. And I just wanted to ask if there was anything that you thought might be relevant related to sections 25, 26. I won't ask you to comment on 27, 28, 29, or 30, but I was wondering if there's anything perhaps that you can share offline, but if there's anything relevant to those that you'd like to share that I should include in my floor report, please let me know.
Sure, thank you. I certainly will. And the only thing I would mention is on if any appropriation becomes available for the volunteer coordinators, we would, as we anticipate how best to utilize those funds, we think initially the most efficient approach may be to incorporate that into our mobility and transportation innovation grant program and have the providers apply through that program for these funds for not only volunteer recruitment, but mobility management. That's the other side of the demand supply category. And so anyway, we've been thinking about that additional level of support and did want to bring that forward because I don't think that's been shared with this committee. And I appreciate not being in a position to comment on DEVA's and AHS's comments. I'll take a look at the others and communicate and confirm where we are, Senator.
Great, and thank you. That's exciting to hear the MTI grant program may live again with this new funding. If I could write the T-bill alone, it would have a very large appropriation to the MTI grant program. So I do hope that we get to review that at another time too. So thank you, Ross.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Damon, do you have, can you quick run us through what we have for an overall amendment? And do you have the package of what the four things we're looking at?
Sorry, I can run you through the overall amendment. What was the second part? I just didn't.
There should be. There's four things that we've been talking about.
In the amendment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Nice tie.
Thank you.
Now you're official.
I am. I put on depending on the day, I think of it as my uniform or my battle armor. It just depends on how things are going in here.
Yeah.
So I can walk you through the amendment. I just sent it to Megan. Would you like me to pull it up on the screen?
Yes,
for you?
please.
Okay. Let me get
Is
it.
there a new version that was on the?
There is a new version, literally moments ago.
I'm also getting copies, but it'll be a minute.
Appreciate you working with
Is it
me.
draft 1.2 or 2?
It is draft 1.2. Because we hadn't looked at it yet. So the rule is always if I've looked at it with the sponsored committee, the first number changes. if we haven't looked at it publicly yet, the second number changes. So, yeah,
I thought it was a day thing.
you know, the date is a separate entry on there. And that is,
That's right, yeah.
important because some committees, like the old days in House Commerce, you might go through 5 drafts in one day.
Mm.
I would just run back and forth all day long. They'd have David Hall and I just alternating.
Cool.
So I know we all miss David here.
But, you know, the house can't ever recover its life.
Yeah.
Wow, I just lobbed that one in there for you. She's like batting practice in here. Fortunately, it looks a little bit like the Red Sox game last night.
Oh my God, don't even start.
You had time to watch a game?
I did not. I had time to watch the highlights while I walked down my breakfast this morning. Anyway, let's talk about the amendment here. I'm done filling airtime. So should be up on the screen.
Yep.
So the first one is the Tim Ash section.
Yeah, I read it.
So it is shorter than past years because a lot of the federal funding that we've relied on in past years has dried up. So the opening paragraph is the same as it always is. Investments to
Yeah.
reduce greenhouse gas, help save money, reduce fossil fuel use, comply with policies in the Comprehensive Energy Plan, Climate Action Plan, and the commitment to the Paris Agreement.
So we do that every year?
Well, the last 4 or 5 years.
5 years.
Okay.
at
Only
least.
the numbers change, right? Pretty much.
Only the numbers in the list of towns.
Yeah.
That's the time consuming part of this amendment.
The towns, yeah.
And the numbers, so it requires, just so you guys know, not that I object to doing this work for you, maybe I do. This does require going through the transportation program line by line.
The last council to this committee was happy to.
I know she was, and I am realizing more every day how big the issues are to fill.
Yeah.
So we are unfortunate to have lost her, but I do appreciate the opportunity to work with you all because obviously this is the best transportation committee in the Senate.
Get
So-
Yeah,
Anyway,
we need to get through.
Yeah, so the dollar amounts here changed, the number of projects changed, the number of parking spaces changed, but this reflects what's in the current transportation program. Bike and pedestrian is just short of 22 million this year with 33 construction projects, 17 design or right of way, and 10 scoping studies. And then the list of towns is there, so you can check to see if your districts are covered. And then it also includes funding for the operation of the bike ferry by Local Motion off of the Island Line Trail. Some small scale municipal grants for bicycle and pedestrians programs, safe routes to school programs, and of course the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. So I've heard a lot of talk about all the hidden funding for that. It's all out here. The Transportation Alternatives Program, these are various alternative projects that mostly relate to bike and pedestrian facilities. It also includes a lot of clean water and stormwater work. And so that's highlighted in here. There are 51 projects funded this year for a total of just shy of $6.5 million. Hope my numbers don't match up actually. There's a typo in there and I will correct that. Anyway, there are the first number, the 17 is a typo. I think that should say 27. But there are 20 involving environmental mitigation and 32 that involve bicycle and pedestrian facilities. And if you're counting, one of them involves both pedestrian facilities and stormwater facilities. And then there's the list of the town's projects are funded in. I will correct the first number in there while you're doing your discussion. The public transit program, 52.7 million this year, 380,000 for Go Vermont. MTI has 340,000, of which 315 is in federal funds. And then rail program, just shy of 62 million this year, which supports intercity passenger rail, Ethan Allen Express, Vermonter, as well as freight rail. And the quote, the last sentence has been in the last several T-bills, just noting that moving freight by rail instead of trucks lowers greenhouse gas emissions by up to 75%. And that is it. Normally, there are another 3 sections relating to electric vehicles and charging equipment, which are just, we don't have the funding for this year.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Why on rail programs, you don't say what the federal funds amount is?
I haven't broken that out anywhere except for the MTI grants.
Why do you do that?
I honestly just followed Anthea's format from last year.
Okay,
So
I think it's relevant to do, but I'm not,
Okay.
we're in a rush this time, but I think it's relevant to show the federal funds on,
uh,
How much is
Transit.
federal, how much is?
yeah, and rail. But if that slows you down, I mean, it would slow you down.
yes, but I think I can find that information pretty quickly. It's the, yeah, in the interests of time, I was just going off of what we had in prior bills. So I'm not reinventing the wheel, but looking at the transportation program for rail, federal dollars is 31,894,436. So I will add that in.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, this is your bill. So if there's things you want in here, just say it. And that's what I'm here for. So
Need to move.
okay. I'm sorry, you guys.
We need to move.
Yes, sir. Okay. Town highway, non-federal disaster. This is language we went over yesterday. That was in the Senate Appropriations Committee amendment, which they decided to let the Transportation Committee put in their amendment. Same language we looked at yesterday, moving 1.15 from pilot fund to pay for this program and reducing the amount of T fund by 1.15 million.
Yep.
Okay. Second section, again, same as we looked at yesterday. Agency of Transportation is authorized to utilize up to 600,000 in one-time funds appropriated from the Transportation Fund instead of the general fund for the public transit demand response volunteer coordinators.
Or coordinators and volunteers, depending on how you want.
Yes. But do you want to change that language or are you just poking me at this point?
No.
Well, just because I brought up, somebody was confused in appropriations yesterday, that like, it's their volunteers, why are we paying?
Right. No, I can see that.
Okay, fourth instance of amendment here. As you all saw, I think also last night, the Department of Vermont Health Access had proposed striking section 27 again, which is a repetition of language that we have had in the big bill since at least 2016. Each time this contract goes out for renewal.
So we've had it in the budget every year since.
Every time they're out for an RFP process. on this that I know of, so
1922. So it's been there 3 times.
And that's the report. What are you talking about? That's what the section 27, that's the fourth instance of amendment.
yes, the 4th instance of amendment. So if I look back in,
Which is just asking them to do a report.
yes,
But when they final the contract, report back to us saying how it demonstrated this few things. They just didn't want to do the report.
so
Well, I'm not exactly at this point sure of what they wanted to do in total. I personally would not like to totally delete that language. I'm willing to pare the language back and continue this conversation into the conference committee. I think the House will have some opinions upon this, but if it's been in the budget 3 times, why to take it out in total seems to me, without a clear explanation, seems to be. Do you have the language from before, Damien?
yeah, I'm pulling up, I'm finding the most recent version right now. I think it was 2020. But
Well, it's page 6 here, and what he plugged in is what the Eva asked for. And it would replace what hopefully he's gonna put up on the screen.
Okay, wait, now I'm confused. I just asked, so we're now going to be looking at amended language that's separate from what we had in our original amendment that Damien's going to be
The
sending.
original language that was in the T-bill, as we passed it, this is what Eva asked to replace that.
Okay, so what's in our amendment is what Diva wants.
Is what, what's in front of
so what's
you.
in draft 1.1 is what Diva wants. And draft 1.2 is what I was asked to draft. That's a trimmed down version, which is now on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay,
And what I'm saying is what we put in the T-bill, what has been in 3 times, just before they've done each of the negotiations, that language has showed up.
Yeah.
I'm willing to pare this down a little, but I'm not willing. Their suggestion is we take it completely out, and
yeah, I would stay with the original language we've had in since 2017, if I had my druthers, but it sounds like we've made some kind of compromise, even going more.
we've been
towards-
trying to
Okay.
get people in here to
Yeah.
get to some where there was a comfort level. We apparently haven't been successful. But we've been trying.
Thank you.
But we expect this to likely change in conference.
I would expect there will be opinions. There have been opinions around the horn on this ever since we started talking about it.
Yeah, so the Diva, I believe, provided the entire committee last night with a memorandum outlining their objections to the language, I think. I'm trying to find this. No, I'm gonna forward this to the committee, unless, Megan, did you post their memorandum?
No, but I can right now.
Okay, I'll forward it to the committee. So I just forwarded the memo to you. So they outlined their legal concerns. I reviewed the legal concerns with Jen Carvey from our office this morning, very briefly, since she handles Medicaid. There does seem to be some validity to the concerns. I'm not a Medicaid expert, so I can't provide more on that. So I think the language that's being proposed is a reduced version of what's been in prior bills. The report has been done in prior years. While testifying here, I received a note that noted that it's critical to note, and I'm quoting, that the language being included in 2016 in no way makes it any more acceptable or federally permitted in 2025. So I don't know where else to go from there. I think it requires more discussions with DEVA, and that obviously is up to you. And so, as the chair said, this is something that will allow it to be discussed. Keep the language in and allow it to be discussed and worked on in conference committee. So,
You know, for me, the two pieces that are left up there, no degradation to service to eligible individuals and the financial stability of the public transit agencies are important, and I would hate to drop that.
The first one is better than the second,
Well,
but if it'll be changed
So-
in conference,
yeah,
I
and
went back to the other language, but if this is where we compromised, okay.
yeah, that's not the compromise.
No, this is
There-
the compromise.
Yeah.
this is, I want to emphasize
It's,
here, I cannot speak for DEVA, but as we are testifying on this, I've received 2 emails from DEVA stating that they are not okay with this language. So
But they've never been okay with it. Did you just?
they have not been okay with any version of section 27.
Okay.
At this point. So the version they were okay with was in draft 1.1, which deleted it. So,
Yeah.
So that gives you the background there. Again, I can't advocate one way or the other.
And I'm sure we're happy to talk about this, but I'm still not understanding why it was been in 3 times. And, yeah, you know, and I don't want to see individuals hurt. And I do worry about the public transit system, so,
Mhm.
and to be continued. Are we okay with going ahead with this language?
I'd prefer to do what Viva wants now and know that we're gonna add language in conference.
Well,
But
we are to the
I-
last
yeah.
minute.
So
What does people want?
something else,
They want nothing.
well, but their concerns are,
But if we have nothing and the house has nothing, you know.
that's the issue that comes up in conference committee. You do run the risk
Sorry.
of a challenge on the basis of germaneness
Oh.
if you add new language versus taking language out.
okay, I just got the email from them saying what they want.
Right.
So,
And then it's a multi-page memo.
right, so I can't
So, right,
say include that memo, that
Right.
doesn't make sense.
the,
We just got it
Uh,
2 minutes.
I forwarded it to you
And
so that you would have it, and it's now posted. So this came yesterday. I'm not sure. Sorry. Alex sent it yesterday at noon. And then I incorporated it into the draft last night. And so that's what you got at this point.
It
But
is incorporated.
it was incorporated in 1.1. The chair this morning asked me to replace that with the trim down language you see in 1.2. So, and the trim down language from the standpoint of likely going to conference committee, the trim down language gives you a section that you can delete in conference committee. Without raising a germaneness issue. Whether you get a germaneness issue if you added language in conference committee. It ultimately is up to the bodies, but you do raise the risk that if someone dislikes the language, they can challenge it on germaneness grounds. And then you'll have to have the body rule on whether it's germane. And with conference committee bills or with the conference committee report, it's all or nothing. So if the report contains language that's not germane, my understanding is that you need to go back to the conference committee and produce another report. So that's the potential issue that we run into there. You can't amend the conference report on the floor.
Okay.
So, I'm not your Senate secretary, so I may not have that 100%, but yes.
I would like to preserve the ability to continue to have the conversation.
Okay.
Okay? All right. I think we're in agreement. It's in.
Okay. The fifth instance of amendment, this is marked as DEVA proposal. Would amend subsection B in the volunteer drivers publicity and outreach section. So the concern for DEVA here expressed in their memo and expressed in prior testimony is potential violations of the federal conflict of interest, prohibitions where they would be potentially promoting their current contract entity while putting things out for an RFP process, which has to be an open bid, which the federal government could construe as showing favoritism towards the current contractor and creating an unfair playing field for anyone else who wants to enter a bid, if anyone else wants to enter a bid. So they've proposed language that says they shall develop informational materials related to eligibility for the Medicaid non-emergency transportation program, and then in consultation with the Agency of Transportation and other relevant stakeholders, make the materials available to the public on the department's website and other internet-based platforms. So this takes away some of the pieces there about coordinating with the transportation provider. And so that is that.
I personally can live with this. I think the issue of DEVA not being involved, any questions about eligibility are going to go back to DEVA. So I think for the content pieces of what anybody develops, I think that this gets it.
Yeah, it's good.
And I like. Okay, that's it. Right. Last.
Okay,
Is there a lot?
that is it for the instances in here.
Wendy had some suggestions on the language around trails.
Yes. I sent various. There were a lot of orders in what I sent to you,
Yes.
so I thought
Um,
you would be able to pick and choose.
so I sent you back a draft
Oh, I haven't.
short while ago.
Okay,
If you want, I can put it on the screen and share it.
well,
Um,
I would like to see it.
there, yeah.
Here.
If we can take a quick recess, I can walk you through the draft but
Why don't we take 10 minutes
okay.
and then